Folks, this Iran war is getting a little bit out of hand, okay? And it might be time to wrap it up. Now, we're hearing from Trump that he might be ready to wrap it up. Apparently, American forces, they might be fully withdrawing. They were just about to arrive. They were just about to put boots on the ground, but now apparently they're going to withdraw. So I'm going to break down to you in this video everything that's kind of been going on with the Iran war, the details about if it's actually about to end, and maybe some of the reasons why, you know, it could rage on for quite a lot longer if we're not careful, okay? But this is the latest, okay? This is Trump basically saying that he's done with the Iran war. He's over it, all right? He's done. He's tired of it already, all right? And he's going to wrap it up any minute.
I think with 2 or 3 weeks, we'll leave. Because there's no reason for us to do this. Look, problem with the Strait, a guy can take a mine, drop it in the water, and say, oh, it's unsafe. It's not like you're taking out an army or you're taking out a country, or they can drop it. Or you can take a machine gun from the shore and shoot a few bullets at a ship. Or maybe an over-the-shoulder missile, small missiles. That's not for us. That'll be for France. That'll be for whoever's using the Strait. But I think when we leave, probably that's all cleared up. Today, I heard tremendous numbers of ships were sailing through. We're negotiating with them right now. They've been, again, we have had regime change. Now, regime change was not one of the things I had as a goal. I had one goal. They will have no nuclear weapon. And that goal has been attained. They will not have nuclear weapons. But we're finishing the job. And I think within maybe 2 weeks, maybe a couple of days longer to do the job.
So now he's saying they didn't want to do regime change. Now, I thought that was a big thing that they wanted. They definitely didn't want them to have nuclear weapons. But it's a little bit, you know, it's a little bit concerning. He's saying, okay, like, we don't want regime change. I thought we'd killed the leadership's underlings, the underlings, and we were at a point where we didn't even know who was going to take over, and we wanted to get the people to rise up. The people didn't rise up, and now we're basically nearly done, nearly ready to get out there with no regime change. That's a little bit scary. Now, with the Strait of Hormuz currently restricted by Iranian forces due to the war, Trump's also issued a sharp message to European allies regarding their lack of support during the conflict. And he's saying, yeah, we're going to get out of there. The Strait of Hormuz, this is going to get mined. That's France's problem.
Donald Trump is not forgiving or forgetting how his NATO allies treated the United States over the past 4 weeks of the Iran war. The president has continued his near-daily threats and digs at the group, today saying they need to learn how to fight on their own because the US will no longer be helping them. In a Truth Social post, he said, all of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number 1, buy from the US. We have plenty. And number 2, build up some delayed courage. Go to the Strait and just take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil.
So he says the hard part is done, all right? The hard part is done. We beat them, all right? Now all you got to do is just go over there and get your oil. Just go take it, all right? Toughen up. This tactic has been raising a lot of eyebrows, okay? And basically, you know, people are saying, can Trump really call this a win? Is this a win? Did they win over there?
I want to start with a new timeline the president gave tonight. Among many of the things he said about the war in Iran, he said it will be done in 2 to 3 weeks. What does that tell you?
It tells me that President Trump is trying to find a way to end this war unilaterally. The problem he has is that he wants to end the war clearly at this point. The Iranians get a vote, and their vote seems to be to continue it because they want to exact a price by stressing the world economy, driving the price of oil up, keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed. So the president seems to be, in a sense, unilaterally saying, look, we're going to wind down activities. My guess is what he's doing is saying 2 to 3 weeks, because that gives him enough time to pummel the Iranians even more, which is what his Gulf state allies want, Saudi Arabia, the UAE. And then it seems as though they're preparing for a strategy where they simply leave, and maybe the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. Maybe it's not. Maybe they get an agreement, but it's a way out. it strikes me as a rather bizarre situation, because you would have the Strait of Hormuz closed, oil would still be extremely expensive, but it appears that the White House is searching for a way out, and as they have through this entire process, they're sort of freelancing and throwing stuff up and seeing if it will work, and that seems the new idea. Just quit and go home after a few more weeks of this pounding.
And as for the Strait, he really seemed to confirm all the reporting over the last few days that he'd been telling aides that we can end this without reopening the Strait of Hormuz. He flat out said tonight, what happens in the Strait, it's not going to be us that has anything to do with it. Basically saying the United States will not be the one to open the Strait. So where does that leave things?
Well, as I say, it's completely bizarre, because not only are the strategic objectives of the war then not achieved, you have the same Iranian regime in place with even more hardliners, with the Revolutionary Guards in place. They are earning twice as much from their oil as they were before, because the price of oil has almost doubled. And they are making potentially hundreds of millions of dollars, charging fees, $2 million per boat that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. In that way, they are holding hostage the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, and so you've created a situation which is much, much worse for America and its allies, much, much better for Iran. Yes, they are militarily in very bad shape, but they have enough power to do what I just described, which seems to me to be a very, very difficult situation to spin as a win for the United States or its.
So they want to just dip out. They want to basically just say, all right, we're done, we're out. We've done enough, we're out. Let's go. And I'm seeing rumors that Trump's going to announce tonight that it's over with, mission complete. Okay, but that is unfortunately not really that easy when things like this are just still going on. This was only a day or two ago. Footage surfaced documenting the Iranian missile strike on the U.S. military base. I believe this is in Saudi Arabia. This destroyed E-3 sentries, multiple refueling planes. 12 U.S. personnel have been wounded. 2 of them were seriously injured in the Iranian attack on the military base. And yeah, this sort of thing, like, you're going to just put up with this and just leave? You're just going to take this on the chin? Like, America, as tough as America is, you're going to take this on the chin and just leave? Really?
Oh, are y'all good? Everybody's good? Yeah. Everybody over here is good? Yeah. Good. I saw that one come in. You guys all right? Everybody okay? Yeah.
So you're going to just take that? I mean, it's crazy, right? It says from the VA, your injuries sustained while serving in the Middle East during the current period have not been deemed service-related, disability rating reduced. That's how they be doing the veterans in America. Saying, are you winning, son? They should send Baron Trump. He's 20 years old. He's old enough to fight for Israel. That's what they're saying, okay? It is wild. Now, Iran has continued to basically put across threats as well. They've threatened to target major U.S. tech giants operating in the Middle East. It's not just the oil infrastructure. It's also the technology companies, your algorithms, your Apples, your Metas, your Googles. Iran is threatening to attack U.S. tech companies starting April the 1st. This ain't no April Fools. They're going to be targeting Apple, Google, Microsoft, among others. Good God. Iran's military issued a new threat to 18 U.S. companies in the Middle East Tuesday, pledging to strike espionage entities associated with the warmongering government of the United States. The new threat specifically called out tech companies like Apple, Google, Meta, and Microsoft, which Iran says assisted in U.S.-Israeli terror operations since the war against the country was launched February 28th, according to Iran TV. They called out hardware suppliers HP, Intel, IBM, and Cisco. The strikes against U.S. tech companies are supposed to start April 1st, 8 p.m. local time in Iran, which is 12:30 p.m. Eastern time in the U.S. Many U.S. tech companies have offices in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Abu Dhabi, and they could be the targets of Iranian drone and missile attacks if the country follows through. In response to this terrorist operation, they said the main institutions involved in the activities will be considered legitimate targets. That's what Iran said. They're advising employees of those institutions to leave the workplace and protect their lives. Residents within a 1 kilometer radius of these terrorist companies across those regions are urged to evacuate and move to safe locations. Now, Iran apparently threatened tech companies on March the 10th, calling out Palantir and Oracle, which are involved in the U.S. military operations. But I don't think they did shit. basically. They apparently hit 2 Amazon data centers in the UAE, one in Bahrain during the first week of the war. The US military actually uses AWS, which experienced power outages and water damages from the firefighters putting out the fire. Trump has pledged to keep the US out of regime change wars, but him and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth have been bragging about how the regime in Iran has been changed by assassinating the leader. They kind of changed the regime, but they didn't really change the ideology of the regime. And they're saying it's now unclear what the actual goal of the Iran war might be. They're saying his son is more radical, is now in charge of the country. Iran is blocking the Strait of Hormuz. They're basically saying that Iran is now in a stronger position, according to them. They've got capabilities they haven't even yet deployed. Now, I find stuff like that bullshit. We're so tough. We've got so many capabilities. We just haven't used them yet. Use them, pussy. Use them if you're going to use them. If you're going to talk about them, don't talk about them if you're not going to use them. We've just been throwing our little pussy missiles at you without throwing the full-blown ones. Do it. Do it. It says there's still many surprises, things the American and Israelis have yet to face. For example, we possess electromagnetic weapons capable of disabling an entire city's power and electronic systems without harming civilians. That would be interesting to see that play out. But again, it's like you're giving it all this talk. We killed your supreme leader. Your supreme leader is in a pack. We're smoking your supreme leader, and you're telling me you got weapons you're not even ready to use yet. We smoked your leader. I think it might be time for you to actually use some of those weapons. I would wonder whether they have nothing up their sleeve, basically, because they're just getting absolutely smoked and trounced at every turn. Anyway, they're saying the reason such capabilities haven't been unleashed yet is because there's been an effort to avoid seriously targeting infrastructure. That's why we have no concern about the war continuing or becoming prolonged. Well, America is about to pull out. Trump's about to say, let's just pull out. Apparently, nearly 2,000 people have been killed, 24,800 have been injured in Iran since the start of the war, and 13 American soldiers have also been killed with 200 wounded. Okay, it is pretty serious. It is pretty sad. So there's been some analysis of kind of the ground operations and what's going on as far as the tactics on the ground. And apparently things are very complicated on the ground as the US is preparing its exit strategy.
So it's day 32 of the Iran war. The Wall Street Journal has been running a story that President Trump is apparently looking at a way of ending hostilities, but potentially leaving the Straits of Hormuz unresolved. Is that a tenable plan? What is interesting is the Iran war was originally only focused on Iran, but Iran has been fighting back, launching missiles and strikes across the region, Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, but also it's ended up with the Straits of Hormuz and the Bab al-Mandab Straits, and of course across in Israel. The whole conflict seems to have expanded and potentially looks like it's getting out of control. But as a military planner, you're ruthlessly focused on, is the military plan delivering the strategic objectives? So let's look at what the US military objectives were for this campaign. Trump's been pretty clear. They fall into 2 main categories. The first 2 are around the nuclear capability, to stop Iran delivering nuclear weapons, but also developing their own nuclear program, and also stop them threatening their neighbours, not just with conventional military capability, but also the defence industrial base that delivers that as well. The challenge, of course, is has that been achieved? Well, charitably, we know that Iran's military has been severely degraded by the military operation. We don't know about the nuclear capability, but you can pretty much guarantee that that has been a key focus. It's pretty clear that Iran is not prepared to surrender or capitulate, and therefore negotiation is the only way that this is going to end. The challenge, of course, is that President Trump is a seasoned negotiator. He'll want some leverage. And that probably explains why he's got the threat of the US Marine Corps in the region, because they would almost certainly propose a credible threat for Kharg Island, potentially on some of the islands in the Straits of Hormuz, and even potentially some sort of mini invasion around the Straits of Hormuz to secure land there. Now, this would be a very dangerous military operation. I've no doubt the US Marine Corps could do it, but it would risk casualties. But that's missing the point. The point actually is making sure the Iranian leadership believe there's a credible plan there and just a seed of doubt that President Trump might see it through, and that provides President Trump some leverage. The challenge, though, of course, is the Straits of Hormuz remains contested, it remains closed, and that's a big problem for the international community. But quite frankly, President Trump doesn't really see that as an American problem at all. He says quite clearly the US doesn't use the Straits of Hormuz, whereas the international community, European allies do. And of course, the European allies haven't actually been supporting America in this campaign. So what looks very likely to be happening at the moment is President Trump's going to position himself as being the one who solved the Iran problem, and it's now going to be for the European partners to mop up the bits and solve the Straits of Hormuz. The challenge, of course, here is that military action will never change the intent of the Iranian leadership. The only way to do that is through political dialogue. The military action has undoubtedly written down Iran's ability to not only develop nuclear weapons, but also pose a credible threat to its partners. But over
So the threat that Iran poses has gone down, but they're livid, all right? They're riled up. And they're kind of locked in, basically, like they're on a long-term holy war to avenge their, leader that got murdered. America's ready to just dip and leave it all behind. Now, this is a little bit of an imbalance. Even if we pull out, we're going to have to deal with these guys. You killed the leader, you killed his father, you killed his family, you killed his wife, all this stuff, all right? They're going to want to get it back in blood, and we're going to have to deal with this at some point. Now, experts are debating the strategic necessity of seizing the Kharg Island. There was rumors that Trump would be doing a ground invasion of this island. I feel like now at this point, because of the bad press the war's getting, I feel like Trump's ready to just dip out the whole thing and claim victory. But people are wondering whether this Kharg Island situation was worth doing.
If winning the war in Iran was as simple as taking or destroying Kharg Island, the hub from which Iran exports almost all of its oil, a key pillar of its overall economy, why hasn't the U.S. done it yet?
Trump now says American troops could seize Kharg Island, which is the key to the country's oil exports.
100% of that revenue generating capabilities on a single island. Mr. President, take Kharg Island. This war is over.
The U.S. has already attacked the island's military sites. This was within just a couple of weeks of the start of the war. And for the last several weeks, I've seen report after report that the White House is considering a much heavier kind of strike. Most recently, in an interview with the Financial Times, Trump said, maybe we take Kharg Island, maybe we don't. We have a lot of options. I don't think they have any defense. We could take it very easily. So again, why don't they? They're certainly posturing like they will.
The Washington Post today said that the Pentagon is getting ready for what it could be ground operations in Iran involving Kharg Island.
The U.S. military now has thousands of ground troops deployed to the Middle East, and Kharg Island could be a target.
But Trump will also know inching closer to a ground operation in Iran, even on an island less than half the size of Manhattan, could wind up being an enormous mistake. I'll show you why. Kharg Island is also known as the Forbidden Island because of how closely Iran guards it. You don't just wander onto Kharg Island, and for good reason, because Iran's most valuable commodity, oil, is responsible for somewhere up to a fifth of its economy. 90% of that oil is exported from Kharg Island. It almost has to be, because 3 of Iran's largest producing oil fields are here, here, and here, part of an entire network of oil fields. But just the 3 sites I pointed out are capable of producing millions of barrels of oil a day, with known reserves in the billions. They're connected by pipeline to Kharg Island. Iran also drills for oil just offshore, nearly a dozen major oil fields in Iranian waters. They also shuttle oil to world markets via Kharg Island. And the reason...
So all the oil in the country all goes to this one island. And what's really interesting is it's all piped there, right? The pipeline all leads to Kharg Island, and then it's all shipped through the Strait of Hormuz and beyond. Now, what is interesting is Trump's been saying that he wants to take it, but apparently, okay, a ground invasion of Kharg Island could go very, very left.
So I'll start by saying the U.S. probably could just take Kharg Island. I haven't seen anyone dispute that.
Absolutely strong enough, and we could do it. There's no question about it.
There's very little that the U.S. military can't do.
Except one thing it can't do is take Kharg Island without taking losses itself.
The 31st MU could probably do it. I think the 82nd Airborne, the Media Ready Brigade, could probably do it. But, at what cost?
Let's game this out. You're the United States military. You've brought warships to Iran, destroyers, aircraft carriers. But if you're going to take Kharg Island, you can't just bombard it from afar. You need boots on the ground. So you mobilize thousands of Marines and pile them into these landing craft air cushion, LCAC, high-speed amphibious hovercraft. These are so big, you can put an M1 Abrams tank on board. And these are so versatile, they're capable of landing even in more shallow water. So you set course for the Iranian shoreline in the Persian Gulf. The plan is to secure Kharg Island by taking this land as well, to establish a bit of a perimeter. But Iran knows this attack is coming. It's been dotting the narrow choke point that is the Strait of Hormuz with sea mines in unknown numbers, unknown positions.
Which are just as deadly and hard to disable and hard to find as landmines. We've been talking for weeks now about how the Strait of Hormuz is closed to oil tankers trying to get out of the strait, and here we are talking about probably Marines trying to get into the strait. So it's sort of the same problem in reverse.
And while you're dealing with that problem, there's another overhead.
Now, we also know they have drones. They developed the Shahad drone, years ago, and we know that they have thousands and thousands of these.
These drones, cheap, effective, can hit anywhere in the country at any time. But Kharg Island is also so close to shore.
The closeness to the Iranian mainland is why the forces there would be so vulnerable, because Iran actually doesn't have to put anything on Kharg Island to defend it.
Almost all attacks.
So basically, the US pulling up and taking over Kharg Island would be great. It'd be great for that oil. Be great to steal all the oil to get all the infrastructure that you need, but also could be an absolute bloodbath, could lead to many Americans being killed. But that said, even though we're hearing that Trump might be ending the war and announcing the war's over today, we're also hearing that there might be more troops headed to the region. So they're kind of hedging their bets. Okay, it says US deploys a third aircraft carrier to the Middle East amid preparations for an Iran invasion. This was just yesterday. It says the USS George H.W. Bush, a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, departed Naval Station Norfolk in Virginia on Tuesday alongside its accompanying warships. So another carrier has basically been deployed over there. There's basically, it's really a game of chicken of like, are they going to leave Iran? Like Trump saying he's going to leave Iran. Now suddenly it's like, maybe are we gonna invade? Are we gonna do a ground invasion or not? I don't know. It's very, very interesting, right? And now there's been discussions online about all the Iranian leaders that have been killed. This is going around. They're saying Caroline Leavitt justifies what happened to the negotiators. Said some of the previous leaders are now no longer on planet Earth because they lied to the United States. They've strung us along in negotiations, and that was unacceptable to the president, which is why many of the previous leaders were killed. People saying this was an absolutely insane thing to say out loud. We killed their leaders in the middle of negotiations because we didn't like the way they negotiated. That's not a good look. Says admitting to icing people on live on TV is a total mask off moment. That's not diplomacy, it's confession. Treating murder like a business strategy is straight up villain behavior. Okay. It's saying this is one of those moments where I just pause and reread it. I remember hearing something that once sounded so extreme, I thought I misunderstood it, and then I realized I didn't. Stuff like this always makes me step back and process for a second. So she's saying that lying to the United States is a good reason to kill the liar. Good. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay. So Donald Trump recently made a post that apparently Iran has a new regime president. They're saying that the supreme leader whose son died, there's been talk that maybe he died as well. Maybe he was hitting the airstrike. Maybe he hasn't. This is the latest as of today. It says US President Donald Trump has stated in a post on Truth Social right as the market opened that Iran's new regime president, possibly talking about President Masoud Pezeshkian, has asked for a ceasefire from the US. Trump had stated that the US will consider a ceasefire once the Strait of Hormuz is open, free and clear. Until then, we are blasting Iran into oblivion, or as they say, back to the Stone Ages. Iran's new president, much less radicalized and far more intelligent than his predecessors, has just asked the US of America for a ceasefire. We will consider it when the Strait of Hormuz is open, free and clear. Until then, we are blasting Iran straight into oblivion, or as they say, back to the Stone Ages. President DJT. Now, apparently Trump is about to make an announcement. Okay, apparently he's about to make a very big announcement. That's what they're saying. There's rumors that he could be announcing that the war is over with, that he is wrapping it up. That's what they're basically saying. So apparently Trump, he's set to give a primetime address. He's apparently going to interrupt all the TV shows today and give an address at primetime. Basically, a lot of people think that he's going to be announcing that the war's over. It's going to be, maybe it's going to be like that George W. Bush moment where he said, mission accomplished for the Iraq war, and I think they stayed there for a few more years. Now, look, I hope this thing ends soon. The damage might already be done. Maybe he's going to hit you with a curveball and announce, actually, we're going to invade Kharg Island with a ground invasion. It's getting really scary, okay? But look, I'll keep you guys updated if I hear any more stuff about this news. I'm excited about this primetime address. I want to know what's going on. I want to hear the latest. I want to see a resolution in this story. But for now, we're all just completely in the dark, okay? I'll keep you guys updated if I hear anything new. But for now, that's me. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.